This is Rolling on Roots.
Hello, and welcome to Rolling on Roots. My name is Shahana McKinney-Baldwin. I am a born and raised Wisconsin educator, advocate, and natural sister. This means that I'm an African American woman who does not use chemicals on my hair. I'm your host for today's student workshop show covering texturism, also referred to as hair-based discrimination against textured hair and protective styles. This is a type of discrimination that disproportionately affects Black women. We're here with some incredible guests to talk a little bit about our experiences, as well as the Crown Act proposed here in Wisconsin by one of our guests today, Representative Dr. Lakeisha Myers. We also have Congresswoman Gwen Moore joining us in the studio. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Representative Myers, could you tell us in one sentence, what is the Crown Act?
The Crown Act is legislation that means creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. It is allowing us to be ourselves, wearing our hair as it grows from our scalps. That's
as simple as that.
Yes, ma'am.
And Congresswoman, you've talked a little bit about the need for the Crown Act. In a sentence, could you talk a bit about the complaints that you would get back in the day from Black women in the United States military who faced discrimination because of their hair?
In fact, the United States military changed their policy because it just, on a practical basis, while it's wonderful to be able to do anything you want with your hair, on a practical basis, I visited Baghdad, which on any given day in the summertime, it's 104, 110 degrees. These women complained when I went to Baghdad that they weren't allowed to wear afros, they weren't allowed to twist it, braid it, lock it. They couldn't put it in the protective hairstyles. And I'm sure that their only option was to either get up and try to figure out how to straighten it every day for it to last 10 minutes in the hot sun,
and they
or to shave it off.
And they faced actual policies that prohibited them from wearing their natural hair, as you said, Representative, as it grows from our scalps. We're going to talk more about protective styles later in the show. Would you also talk a little bit now about, in the political field, in your roles, have you had any experiences with discrimination because of your hair, or feeling negative judgment, racist judgment about Black women's hair? Representative Myers.
Indirectly, yes. I think there is a standard that exists for most industries. I'm sure Representative Moore can talk about this as well. When you look at television news, when you look at individuals who work in front-facing industries, there is always what is neat, what is the company standard, what is our grooming policy. And these sort of race-neutral policies often disregard African-American or Afro-Latina hair.
Which is not race neutral at all.
Absolutely, not at all, no.
And Congresswoman Moore, can you talk a little bit about your own journey as an elected official with your hair?
Well, this was so apropos because I talked earlier about just the practical need to be able to wear your hair, as you said, as it grows out of your head. When I was campaigning in 2004, I had a plethora of photos of myself with my straight hairdo. I had some length to it. I'd go every 2 weeks to get it done, had it broken down with chemicals. And so when I was campaigning 20 hours a day, it was just almost impossible for it to be well groomed, for me to have the time to take out to do it. And my sister Brenda, my political director, would not allow me to go natural because she didn't want to change my hairdo in the middle of a campaign where all of my literature had me with these straight hairdos. It was really miserable. I feel like my hair spoke to me. And as soon as I took office in 2005, 2006, I happened to be watching Don Imus.
Don Imus, the infamous DJ who made a racist comment about our championship basketball players.
Those girls, the University of Connecticut, I believe it was, he called them nappy-headed, blank, blank. And it was that day that I sought out a loctician in solidarity with them, but more importantly, to get myself a practical hairdo that, given my frantic and frenetic schedule, could accommodate the fact that I needed to be able to get in the shower and take a shower and run out, get on an airplane, leave my house at 6 a.m.
Right.
And since then, I haven't had a bad hair day since.
No, you have not.
The culture of hairstyling in Milwaukee is a social and continuous one, like any other culture in America. The black hair care industry is valued at approximately $9.6 billion globally, as money is spent 9 times more by women of African descent on hair care products than any other group of women. Let's take a look at Milwaukee's hair care scene.
Hair is an essential feature to African and African American people and in the communities they live in, where the proximity of beauty supply stores are closer than ever before, in the neighborhoods serving them most. Wisconsin contributes to the black hair care market like all states where communities of people of color reside, funding the approximately $9.6 billion industry as they make it through their lives with various routines, styles, and products. It takes trial and error and learning about your hair's uniqueness to craft your own routines. This is Bobby B., a licensed cosmetologist in Milwaukee, one of many styling the roots of the city.
Protective styles can make or break your hair because it's the consistency and the idea of like kind of leaving your hair alone when it comes to protective. That is the idea of what a protective style is. I guess I can explain that. Is putting your hair in a position or a state in which you don't have to do too much manipulation. Whether that be braids, that can be twists, that can be even molded styles, such as like quick weaves, that can be a protective style because you're putting your hair away. When you put it away, in a sense, it's not freestanding, such as, you know, a silk press. Even a curl definition can be considered a protective style because your hair is being put in a state in which you don't have to manipulate it any further. And that's its best option, especially when it comes to texturized hair. When texturized hair is manipulated too frequently, it can allow the hair to basically become weak and snap off, and you can have yourself finding more breakage and length retention.
It becomes no easier when the demands of timeliness from school and work are added to the equation. It is less of a hassle for Black women to wake with their hair styled than to spend 10 minutes to an hour on their hair in the morning.
Woo! Being a student athlete and having to miss hair appointments because you have a game, that was a different type of heartbreak. As I got older, I discovered Pinterest. And Pinterest had like a lot of natural hairstyles for Black women. So I was like, okay. But my mistake was I was following people that had like type 3 curls or like 3A. And I'm like, why isn't my hair turning out like that? Like, I'm doing all the steps required. I do not understand it whatsoever.
The natural hair experience doesn't just end at the beauty supply store. The atmosphere of salons and home-based hairstyling is a warm and safe one with bursts of conversation, laughter, and unity.
When in the shop, there is this sense of freedom, there's a sense of confidence. They call us unlicensed therapists because when you come in, you really truly get to let your hair down, not only physically, but figuratively, where you kind of just release kind of all your stressors and you can be a little more frank when you're around your stylist. This is supposed to be a safe space, and you are supposed to be open enough to just express yourself how you feel.
Black hair is not only special because of the expression of identity and culture, but also because we are human who deserve rights and opportunities just as every human. There are historic connections attached to our own roots, and the Crown Act protects the roots of our present and future of natural hair and protective styling.
Shout out to the Milwaukee hair scene, to Bobby B, who actually is your hairstylist,
He
Dr.
is.
Myers. Amazing. It's incredible how things have changed over the years. Back in the day, we didn't know much about protective styles. And actually, there has been harm that's been caused by some of our hair care practices. The versatility and creativity of hairstyles for African American women has been apparent forever to us, with people actually taking risks, though, sometimes for their hair to look just right. Chemical processing became popular in the early 20th century and persisted through the civil rights movement as there was pressure to assimilate into white mainstream society and a white beauty standard. I'm wondering if the two of you can talk a little bit about your experiences as young people with your hair and with hair care. Congresswoman Moore, would you begin?
Wow. The need to sort of fit in really became an imperative of mine at a really young age. I was teased a lot as a young woman about my hair, and I thought my hair couldn't grow because we do have fragile hair, and it breaks off very easily with a tight coil and curl, the nappy, as it were, hair. And I used to be teased, you know. People used to say, Gwen, your hair is so short we can smell your brains. Your hair is so short that when you stand on your head, your hair still doesn't touch the ground. And so I felt a real need to, when I got older, to put chemicals in it. I can remember when I first ran for the state assembly, the job that you now have. In 1988, one of the hottest summers on record, where my hair actually just burning from the chemical treatments and then being out in the hot sun.
Oh, and your scalp
My
actually
scalp was
receiving
on fire.
a burn because of the chemicals.
Because of the chemicals. And then just the need to go and maintain that hairdo, as the young woman talked about on the video, just the time that you had to put in to maintain that hairdo in order to look professional, to look white, really stole your life from you.
Oh my. I don't want to rush past that. It's profound.
I had an inferiority complex coming up because of my hair.
And now you rock a beautiful head of Sistalocks, and you're a role model to all of the women and girls in our state and across the country.
And if you want your hair to grow, be careful of what you pray of, because I've chopped it like 3 times and it won't stop growing.
That's true.
Representative Myers, very briefly, can you talk a little bit about your experience as a child with your hair?
As a child of the 80s, I had braids, and then there was the PCJ perm. So,
PCJ.
PCJ, the box perm. So I had a box perm when I was probably 10.
Wow.
And I had some hair breakage. Some of it did fall out. Luckily, we went back to our trusted method of the pressing comb. So I have a couple burns if I hold my ear.
Yes.
To know about
Hold
that.
the ear.
Yeah. So, and I'm back natural now. So just, I have a standing appointment with Bobby every 2 weeks. So we make sure we keep that appointment.
Your hair is gorgeous.
Thank you.
I myself had long dreadlocks for years.
Okay.
And then now I wear this kind of, I call it a fake wet set. I'll say that a big part of my journey, however, has also been ending the coloring of my hair, which also is connected to the sexism and the racism and these culturally constructed beauty standards. Representative Myers and Congresswoman Moore, I want to direct the conversation now to the Crown Act and how the two of you are making it possible for the people of Wisconsin. Representative Myers, can you talk a little bit more about the Crown Act?
Absolutely. The Crown Act is the brainchild of a former state senator in California, Holly Mitchell. And Holly was great about working with Dove and the Crown Coalition in trying to bring some reprieve to people in California and spreading the message across the country. Unfortunately, we have introduced the Crown Act, I believe it's 3 consecutive sessions. We've received a public hearing twice, but no movement outside of the committee process to get it passed in Wisconsin. But it is one of the signature pieces of legislation that I will continue to pass as long as I'm in the legislature.
Thank you so much for your leadership on this. So the Crown Act, Congresswoman, has passed in a number of other states, although it didn't pass at the federal level. Is that correct?
It's passed in a number of other states, California, New York, or some other states, and it's pending in a variety of other states. So keep the work going. The movement is there. The need for it is there. And, it's just like Vel Phillips, as we
Keep
celebrate
going.
this, just keep reintroducing it.
We're celebrating Vel Phillips's 100th birthday.
Yeah. And, she was an icon for what it means to just keep on working it until you get it done. It is, the Crown Act is really necessary. And I'll just have to say, when Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman of New Jersey introduced it on the floor, I was one of the folks who spoke. And you should have seen the pushback that we got from white men as they just ridiculed us about the need for the Crown Act.
It sounds like you're describing something out of the late 1800s. What is the conflict? How would one politely describe this conflict? I would describe it myself as it's about racism and sexism. But what are the excuses that people give when they are arguing about this issue?
Well, it's sort of keeping people in their place. You talked about your own hairstyle where you had dreadlocks. And that was a name, I believe, that white people, white men gave to our hair when it was in its natural state and before the press and comb.
Right, because there's nothing to dread.
That's
when you
right.
have locks.
Dread locks. And it's keeping you in your place. There was a standard of beauty that was different from the natural coils of our hair, and it's just part of keeping us in our place. If you want to be beautiful, you need to make your hair look different
and adhere to that particular culturally constructed beauty standard.
No matter how much pain it causes, how much damage, how much cost it is to you, this is the standard of beauty.
Now, are there things that community members can be doing right now to show their support for the Crown Act in Wisconsin?
Absolutely. write your member of the legislature, write every member of the legislature to request that there's a public hearing and a vote, an affirmative vote out of that committee to make sure that we can get the Crown Act to the floor and to get it passed. That works in both of our chambers. If you write to Congresswoman Moore and all of the 435 members of Congress to make sure that they pass the Crown Act at the federal level.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about the youth. One of the reasons why it's critically important to have good policy is to protect the youth. The youth are our future, and it's important that we support and represent them as they grow and learn what it means to represent themselves. The Crown Act has the potential to support Wisconsin's youth as they're sometimes faced with discrimination from their own teachers, from their own classmates, who separate their style of their hair from the significance of their attendance.
Bubbles, beads, barrettes, bows, and bumped ends are some of the things that make up the childhoods of little black girls. From youth is where we gather our first experiences of hairstyling.
I remember seeing Annie for the first time, and she had this fro, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to wear my fro every single day.
Black children learn early that their hair is a huge priority for their parents or guardians, and will become one for themselves as they develop. Children know all too well of the daunting feeling of going to school with a new hairstyle, and how their environment can either be supportive or critical toward them. Sometimes, the households people are raised in can instill toxic messages in youth, following them throughout their lives and harboring insecurity and invalidation of themselves.
My hair is very fragile to me, and I love my hair, and my hair is very, very special.
There are instances of violation of school dress codes and grooming policies, being taunted by other students, and condemnation from joining extracurricular activities like athletics unless their hair is taken down.
Because going to a private school, you couldn't have your hair a certain way.
It doesn't matter about your hair. It matters how you play.
That was so beautiful. I'd like to talk about our dreams for the next generation. I'm a parent of a daughter who has big, beautiful hair. She's also a student athlete, like one of the young people who we heard from in the video. Can you talk a little bit, Congresswoman Moore, about being a mother, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother? What are your hopes for the next generation?
You know, as a mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, I have seen this sort of colorism and good hair conversation crop up in my family. And I was very strident about striking it down immediately when I saw it happening. And I think it's really important for our school system, and you work in the school system as well, to be able to accommodate kids where they are and what their hair looks like. I don't agree with forcing a young man who loves his locks to be forced to cut them off because he's in a wrestling match. I mean, we can always put hair ties in it, or if you work in a restaurant, you can put a hairnet on in order to serve food. Why do we always have to accommodate whiteness in order to work, in order to go to school? And we ought to be able to teach our children that, you know, you wear the hairstyle that best suits you, fits your timeline. Because, you know, I see a lot of white women who have long, gorgeous, silky hair, and they chop it off because it's just too much trouble. They want to wear it short. or they'll grab it and put it in the ponytail. We should have the same flexibility.
And we shouldn't have policies, racist policies, that create barriers for the children.
Right.
This story about the young man in the wrestling match is just one of many. Representative Dr. Myers, the last word, what are your hopes for the next generation?
Equity across the board. That is it. That is all.
Simple. Simple, a simple
Absolutely.
idea
Yes.
and a great challenge to get there, to
Absolutely.
complete equity in our communities. I'd like to thank you, Representative Dr. Myers and Congresswoman Moore, for joining us in this conversation today. And thank you all for watching. I'm Shahana McKinney-Balden, and this has been Rolling on Roots.
Mohair.